My name is Hildegard Westerkamp. I am a composer. I live in Vancouver. The kind of composition I do is mostly based on the recordings I make of environmental sounds. Most people call what I do soundscape composition.
Listening is action. A Soundwalk with Hildegard Westerkamp.
When there is no sound, hearing is most alert.
Right now I'm sitting on Kits Beach on a kind of a windy, sunny day, April 15th, 2022. Kits Beach is a kind of an interesting piece because it just came out of nowhere for me. There was no commission, there was no plan, nothing. One evening I was just here on the beach without a tape recorder or anything, just walking, thoughtful, and I come to this particular area here where there's a bunch of rocks. Right now the tide is high and they're almost covered, but at that point the tide was a bit lower and it was a calm evening. It was dark and the water was flat, not like now. Right now it's windy and it's chopped up. I heard these strange clicking sounds. And I got very excited, and so I decided to just go back home as quickly as I could and got my tape recorder and recorded those sounds. I recorded these sounds, and then this text came to me. It's a calm morning. I'm on Kits Beach in Vancouver. It's slightly overcast and very mild for January. It's absolutely wind still. The ocean is flat, just a bit rippled in places. Ducks are quietly floating on the water. I'm standing among some large rocks full of barnacles and seaweed. The water moves calmly through crevices. The barnacles put out their fingers to feed on the water. The tiny clicking sounds that you hear are the meeting of the water and the barnacles. It trickles and clicks and sucks and... The city is roaring around these tiny sounds, but it's not masking them. I could shock you or fool you by saying that the soundscape is this loud. But it is more like this. The view is beautiful. In fact, it is spectacular. So the sound level seems more like this. It doesn't seem that loud. But I'm trying to listen to those tiny sounds in more detail now. Suddenly, the background sound of the city seems louder again. It interferes with my listening. It occupies all acoustic space, and I can't hear the barnacles in all their tininess. It seems too much effort to filter the city out. Luckily, we have bandpass filters and equalizers. We can just go into the studio and get rid of the city. Pretend it's not there. Pretend we are somewhere far away. These are the tiny, the intimate voices of nature, of bodies, of dreams, of the imagination. You're still hearing the barnacle sounds, and already they're changing. Alfred Tomatis says that high frequencies charge our brain and give us energy. I often hear these tiny sounds in my dreams. Those are the healing dreams. In one dream, women living in an ancient mountain village were weaving the most beautiful silken fabric. It sounded like a million tiny voices, whispering, swishing, clicking, sizzling. In another dream, when I entered a stone cottage, I entered a soundscape made by 4 generations of a peasant family sitting around a large wooden table eating and talking. Smacking and clicking and sucking and spitting and telling and biting and singing and laughing and weeping and kissing and gurgling and whispering. In another dream, I heard bullets tinkling, bouncing like tiny marbles. A man was pursuing me with a gun. I was frightened, but the bullets tinkled. Metallic, tiny, seductive semen tinkling all around me. Like in Sďwx concrete pH2, made from the sounds of the discharge of smoldering charcoal, tinkling all over the Brussels pavilion, like needles darting from everywhere, as Xenakis says. You can hear excerpts of that piece right now. In another dream, sitting in the car with a woman friend, I heard sounds of glass, blinking and tinkling, sparkling. On the car radio, they announced that it was Mozart, the way Tomates wants us to hear Mozart. Tinkling and sparkling. These were the healing dreams, energizing. As soon as I make space to hear sounds like this, or to dream them, then I feel the strength to face the city again, or even to be playful with it. Play with the monster. Then I can face the monster. My voice over was not recorded at Kits Beach. Not like I used to do it in a soundwalking show where I would go out and I would have this voiceover where I would tell the radio listener where I was, and it was part of the field recording. In this case, the experience of making those field recordings, then I transferred that into this more compositional environment and wrote that as a text.
When there is no sound, hearing is most alert.
When I started all this was in the 70s. We were all so excited about the technology that we could actually record the whole world. That was completely new. We had portable equipment. My first portable cassette recorder was a Nakamichi big machine, heavy, but we could carry it around and we could walk around and record everything. The original soundwalking idea, there was no idea of recording soundwalks. It was more like you just open your ears to the environment and you learn from that. When I converted that idea to have a radio program around soundwalking, then of course you get into that question of what can you record, what can you broadcast, right? The Vancouver Co-operative Radio was a leftist station, and the ethics there were, and the politics there were, that we were the kind of station that would give voice to the voices that did not have a voice in other media. I remember when I was recording on the square outside of Co-op Radio called Pigeon Square. which was sort of a small triangular park with benches and a few trees. And some of the alcoholics were sitting down there and singing and drinking. Voices from the downtown East Side. I just placed myself on one of those benches with my microphone, and they came up to me. One ethics in my mind was that I wasn't going to be a reporter who sticks the microphone into their face. I was just here to record. And they used the microphone as a mouthpiece, really, to say things that went on for them. Some were complaining, some were making long speeches, but saying something, expressing something, and it felt for me at the time that it was a good thing.
On your fingers are diamonds and gold. I gave you my love, dear. I gave you my name. I was there on your heart. Rings on your fingers are diamonds and gold. Lloyd, I'll never end this song as long as I live in God's green earth. Rings on your fingers are. Would you give me a song? I feel so ashamed. I died to have a go. All you can do is sit down and kill the day, you know. Well, that's it, you know. No, here you just walk around, you know, and wait, you know, and oh, well. Sometimes you eat, you know. Well, if you eat, you know, okay. If you don't, well, you just keep walking, you know.
When you say the ethics of listening, it's also about the ethics of recording, right?
But I mean, how come people like me, but I mean, they can't get a job? But I mean, do we have to land up in dope addict or drug addict or alcoholic? Why? I ask her. Why? I don't want to be a person like that. But I mean, I just can't figure out, you know, but I mean, why? But I mean, do I have to land up in a skid row? Why? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, but I mean, I've been drinking tonight. But why I have been drinking? Why? Nobody say why. Nobody asked me any question. But I mean, how come I've been drinking? But I just can't understand. But I mean, tell me just one thing. Why do I have to get drunk? Why? You tell me that.
Thinking politically also that if the CBC is giving me a commission in the contemporary music context, I would like people of that audience to hear what's going on in the downtown east side of Vancouver. So it was a political decision. It was a social decision. We're on Pigeon Square right now, and we're in front of this totem pole. And the totem pole at its base has a kind of a philosophical thought piece written. These words down here read, "Sing your song, friend. Tell your story."
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm just reading.
I'm
just reading the words down here.
Would you like to buy that?
No, thank you. Tell your story. the map we inherited isn't any good. The old roads mislead. We need a new map. I just want to tell the story. I used to hang the microphone out of the window from the studio as the introductory music of the show for soundwalking. And so the really clear, repetitive thing every Sunday at the beginning of my show was this traffic stopping at the traffic light, voices from down here, more apparent when the traffic stopped, then the traffic starting, sirens, and usually a lot of seagulls, like we heard them. Not many pigeons. I was studying music in Germany, but also here in Vancouver. And during my studies in Vancouver, I heard a lecture by Murray Schafer. He was a guest lecturer from Simon Fraser University coming over to the other university. And that lecture was kind of covering new music, but it was also covering his travels and soundscape and noise issues, composition. And he had organized it in a way that was structurally very unusual for the time. He had sort of a Cajun manner, put stands on different parts of the stage, and each music stand had a different topic. And so he would walk back and forth. And, you know, I came from a fairly conservative background in Germany, classical music upbringing. And here I was in the audience, and here was this guy walking back and forth on stage, seemingly randomly. It was, of course, a composed talk. And then he had stationed my future colleagues from the World Soundscape Project in the audience, and they seemingly interrupted him. And they got up in the middle of his talk and said things like, "How many airplanes have you heard today? What was the first sound you heard this morning? How many birds have you heard today?" And it was just this sort of ear-opening experience, all surprise, in terms of ideas, but also in terms of the composition of that talk. And I came out of that talk like my ears had popped open in ways I had not experienced, and just never forgot that experience. It kept accompanying me, but one day I just thought, I've got to phone Murray Schafer and see whether I can work with him, because I was so fascinated. And I called him, and he invited me to come up to Simon Fraser, and we had a long conversation, and a few weeks later I was hired. And And that was at the stage of the sort of the completion of the Vancouver Soundscape Project, where we had explored Vancouver as a sonic environment, Vancouver from the soundscape perspective, really one of the first studies that approached an urban environment from the listening and sound perspective. Then he was writing The Tuning of the World, his book now titled Soundscape, and I was his researcher there with the other colleagues from the World Soundscape Project. I learned everything, we learned everything we could about sound from all perspectives, because we also wanted to be able to speak to other scientists, and that was Schaefer's vision. We need to work together. It was based on the idea that we have an ecological problem with the soundscape. We have noise, we have to deal with this issue, and the revolutionary idea was that we weren't fighting noise, but we were making a point of listening to it and trying to understand it through perception. And that was a very new idea at the time. All the kind of anti-noise fights and studies were fighting noise. That was sort of more the kind of what we used to call a negative approach. As we said, took a positive approach. We said, okay, let's open up to it. Let's see what our perception can tell us, along with all the studies that were done about noise as well. Viscerally begin to understand what's going on in our sound environment. We have the power as composers and musicians to learn to design the soundscape in a way that is more humane, perhaps, or less damaging to living beings. Personally, to learn to listen like that, something very profound changes in terms of your relationship to the world. We need to learn to listen to the environment, learn to study the sound environment, be in touch with scientists, architects, different professions, so that we can actually recognize that there is an issue and make changes. In this time of climate change, the pandemic, it is beginning to make even more sense that we need to learn to listen and create a new relationship to the environment. And listening can really be an agent for changing relationships between who we are and how we live inside this environment, how we take care of nature. There is an agency in listening. Listening itself is an action that has its influence on how we live and how we act in life.
Listening is Action. A Soundwalk with Hildegard Westerkamp. A sound documentary by Luis Velasco-Pufleau. Listening is Action was recorded in the city of Vancouver, which is situated on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. The authors acknowledge the inherent rights and jurisdictions that these nations hold to their territories. Narrator voice, Hildegard Westerkamp, recorded by Luis Velasco-Pufleau on the 14th, 15th, and 16th of April, 2022. Soundscape compositions, Hildegard Westerkamp. Kits Beach Soundwalk, 1989. Excerpts from Cricket Voice, 1987. A Walk Through the City, 1981. Beneath the Forest Floor, 1992. The compositions are part of Hildegard Westerkamp's album Transformations, released by Empreinte Digitale in 1996. Original idea, additional field recordings and composition, Luis Velasco-Pufleau. Mix, Christophe Rowe. Lead voice, Shanda Vanderhart. This sound work is part of the research project On to Music, conducted at the University of Bern and McGill University, and was financially supported by the European Union's Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Program under the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Grant Agreement number 1010-27828.